Imagine the Great British Bake Off, but instead of baking, the contestants are cutting up charity shop sweaters, sewing them into ball gowns, and being judged on impact, like it's Fashion Week. That's episode 7 of The Game of Wool. This week we're down to 4 contestants and the finale is almost here, but before we talk about what happened in the episode, I need to speak about something that every single commentator has gotten wrong about this show, myself included. We've all been watching Game of Wool like it's a fact. Isaac looks checked out. Lydia looks haughty. Holger knows what he's talking about. But that's not how reality TV works. Reality TV is a construction. And for the past few weeks, I have not been able to stop thinking about this piece of art. And no, this is not a punchline. Stick with me, because this explains everything that is wrong with Game of Wool. This is Fountain by Marcel Duchamp. In 1917, Marcel Duchamp took a urinal, turned it on its side, put it on a pedestal, signed it Armut, and submitted it for exhibition. Now you might be thinking to yourself, a urinal? That is an art. And that is exactly the feeling that Duchamp wanted to inspire with this piece. Fountain inspired an entire school of art from roughly the 1960s to the 1990s called institutional critique. In this school of thought, the entire way we think about art needs to be re-examined. With works like Fountain, the viewer walks into the exhibition space and says, who put that there? Who thought that was art? And that is the whole point, because institutional critique invites you to examine and question the institution itself, the small and privileged panel of individuals who decide what is art and what isn't, what and who gets put on display and who gets relegated to the basement archives. But when we take a step back to try and look and see who's making these decisions, they get to disappear into the mist. They get to tell a story that shapes society's perception of what art is and who deserves to be spotlighted, and they do it entirely undetected. You could stand in the gallery and argue about a painting. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it your taste? Or you can take a step back and ask the question, who decided to put this here? Who decided that it's art at all? And who stands to benefit from that decision? And that's what I want to do with the Game of Wool today, because we've all been standing in the gallery, arguing about the sweaters, arguing about the challenges, arguing about the judges, but we haven't taken a moment to step back and examine the institution. The people who are crafting the storyline are the producers. With that in mind, let's talk about the story that was built for us this week. Challenge 1 is a group challenge. Contestants are told that they need to repurpose a thrift shop errand sweater into a runway-ready dress. Judges say they'll focus on execution, seaming, finishing, fit, and of course, impact. And let's just get this out of the way. This is not a knitting challenge. This is a Project Runway wannabe challenge wearing a knitted costume. And for what it's worth, the only contestant to treat it how a knitter would gets sent home this week. Team 1 is Ailsa and Isaac, and their approach is interesting because Isaac immediately begins unraveling knitted fabric so he can use it to re-knit onto their dress. He's the only one who approaches this challenge as a knitter would, and the show treats this like a goofy waste of time. They even cut to Holger, who says, I don't understand why he's wasting his time doing that. And remember, the show has positioned Holger as wise, as creative, as the clear frontrunner of the barn. So by cutting to Holger saying that, the show was trying to tell you, Isaac's making a mistake here. But in the real knitting world, there's a whole subculture dedicated to unraveling thrift shop sweaters and reknitting them into something new. You can find forums, you can find YouTube tutorials, there's so much information online as to how to do this really well. There are people who go thrifting specifically to harvest wool. It's one of the most sustainable and economical ways to knit with really fine fibers. There is not one knitter who is going to a charity shop, finding an Aran sweater that is past its date. And what does that even mean? Moth holes, pilling, wear? The sweaters in this episode looked absolutely perfect. A knitter who thrifts a sweater might depill it, they might darn it, they might reinforce elbows, they might felt it and sew it into slippers, or they might unravel it and reknit it into something new. But they certainly wouldn't cut it up and sew it into a ball gown that would only be worn once. This is a high fashion stunt. It's not sustainability. Maybe they needed to portray Isaac as a poor decision maker. Maybe they needed to portray him as inexperienced because they had to justify the fact that this episode he would be sent home. Or maybe the show doesn't want to emphasize unraveling and reuse at all, because the show has corporate yarn brand partners who would rather sell you a repurposed t-shirt yarn than have you go to the thrift store and make your own. Regardless of the motivation, the framing is clear. Isaac made a big mistake, and now he's going home. even though Isaac made the decision that is the most aligned with how knitters actually work in the real world. And then we get a second narrative, because during the planning phase of this sweater, Ailsa and Isaac are discussing their direction, and Isaac defers to Ailsa. He says, yeah, sure, whatever you want.
Any first thoughts, Isaac?
This is where you can feel the editors working with foreknowledge. They know that Isaac will be eliminated this episode, and so they want it to look like he is kind of out of the game already. But Isaac's own words contradict that. He says he wants to win, he wants to fight, he wants to give it his all. The edit is telling two different stories at once, but it wants you to pick the one that makes elimination feel inevitable. Not because it's true, because it's satisfying to the viewer. And yes, this is reality TV, but the way that these real people are represented have consequences. And their representation doesn't end when the show ends. They linger, and they have real consequences. Team 2 is Holger and Lydia, and with this team, the story that we're being fed is about division of labor. With Holger and Lydia, the show is weirdly obsessed with keeping score, with who does what. We get Tom asking...
The design for that dress was mainly, I mean, Holger and Lydia worked on it, but Holger was very much responsible for how it all came together.
We get little confessionals that feel designed to tally the contributions.
We're going to divide and conquer. I think it's very clear that Holger is a stronger sewer than me, and that is totally fine, but I am a faster knitter.
Someone decided this is a storyline worth pushing. And when we see Holger excitedly draping pieces on a mannequin in his comfort zone as a designer, and then the show cuts to Lydia rolling her eyes, an editor wanted us to see that. We get Lydia saying, Holger's a stronger sewer than me, I'm a faster knitter, so we'll divide and conquer, which is a normal, factual thing to say about a group challenge. But then Tom pushes. He asks, whose idea was it? And there's a big pause before Lydia says, well, Holger had the idea for the sleeves, I decided I wanted it to be fitted, and then Holger steps in to say, we don't need to keep score here, we're all doing our best.
Whose idea was to put all of these in these places?
Look, Holger came up with the sleeve. I wanted a fitted item.
Mm-hmm. Let's not kind of tally who does what here. We're just all doing our best.
Every scene in this episode was placed where it was in the order that it was for a reason. And each of the clips is being directed by prompts the producers are asking off screen. We don't know what led to these statements. We only know what is shown for us. There's a name for this in film. It's called the Kuleshov effect. We derive meaning from two clips that follow each other. The meaning is in the juxtaposition. So what's the message that's being sent when we see Holger draping fabric and then a cut to Lydia rolling her eyes? The message is, there's tension here. Lydia's not a team player. There's drama to be found. For what it's worth, Lydia is a very expressive person. I am too. The editing team might have an entire hard drive full of Lydia making a variety of facial expressions that they can sprinkle throughout the edit wherever they wish, to make the audience believe she feels some type of way about what's happening. We've experienced this editing phenomenon all season. But in this episode especially, the consequences just feel more severe, because comment sections across the internet, from Facebook to Instagram, have gotten brutal. And in Lydia's case, the commentary has devolved into a place that's really ugly, racist, dehumanizing, the type of discourse that tells you this isn't really about knitting anymore. Here's the part that feels so unfair. The contestants are being attacked and interacted with in real time, but they're under strict NDAs that prevent them from speaking freely until the entire show has finished airing. So they can read it, they can feel it, their families can read it, but they can't defend themselves. That's why you're seeing the contestants post publicly about how much they like each other, how collaborative the whole process was, how much they enjoyed working as a team. It's their horrified attempt to calm down a mob that's reacting to an edit. And Lydia's sister, Hannah, has been rushing to the comment sections to try and defend her sister because Lydia can't speak out herself. Hannah actually came to my comment section and spoke about the show's psychologist, saying the contestants have needed to use those services far more during the airing of the show than during the filming itself, which would tell you a lot about where the stresses of the show are coming from. The most intense psychological impact of the show hasn't been in the barn. It's been the impact of the edit meeting the internet and the backlash that followed. Now, when it comes to the judging for Challenge 1, Di seems more alive than we've seen her all season. And it makes sense. Di is in her wheelhouse. After decades of designing for high fashion and catwalk knitwear on the runway, the judges are finally in their world. High fashion runway knitwear. Di lights up when she talks about designing for the runway. She says, you only have one moment to make an impact, to turn heads. Di's judging philosophy makes sense for runways, for high fashion, embellishments, impact, wow, wow, wow. It all matters in that moment on the catwalk. But it does not represent hand knitting. And that disconnect is why the judging has felt so off. In the second challenge, contestants are asked to make their own yarn from repurposed fabric and to create a functional bag. Judging will focus on structure, stitch choice, and practicality, and contestants have 10 hours to complete the challenge. Lydia uses wax print fabric and knits her bag out of linen stitch. She crochets around acrylic rings to create a really sturdy handle. The judges love it. It holds the weight. They have no notes, really. Ailsa uses her own old gym leggings to crochet a gym bag, complete with water bottle pocket. Because of the stretch in the fabric, it is really difficult to manage tension on this bag, and because Ailsa is using her own and her mom and sister's leggings, there are inconsistencies in the color and feel of the fabric of the bag. Ailsa is actually following the brief. She is repurposing old clothes and giving them new life as a bag. If the judges wanted perfect uniformity, she would have had to buy brand new fabric. Ailsa speaks to the camera and says she has a little bit of self-doubt. She's felt uneasy since episode 4. And it makes sense. These challenges have been grueling, the judging has been inconsistent. It's no wonder that Ailsa doesn't feel comfortable. Holger repurposes t-shirts to create a shell-shaped bag, and you can see how he is working the judges with this challenge. He adds a fringe, he crochets a button, and Dai is delighted that he's remembering the feedback from episodes past. Holger also lines the bag, and I love to look to Instagram for Holger's little insights at the end of every episode. Holger sews all of his own shirts, and so he used the scraps from the shirt he wears in this episode to line the bag, a little Easter egg for the viewer. But on his Instagram, I also saw something else. Holger named this bag, #the horse she rode in on. And look, Holger is very intentional, so I do raise an eyebrow at what he's trying to signal here. Is this directed at the judges? Is it directed at the producers? Is it directed at the challenge design? I'm not sure, but I don't think it's random. Holger also shares a statement about the t-shirts that he had to purchase new to make this bag look uniform, and he does purchase fast fashion t-shirts to try and give them a new life, but it does beg the question, how did a bag that was made out of brand new fast fashion purchased t-shirts, which Holger speaks out against by the way, get praised more highly than Ailsa's bag made out of truly repurposed old gym tights? Isaac hand cuts the strips of fabric from his t-shirts with scissors. Now the other contestants went for rotary cutters and they moved much more quickly. 2 hours into the challenge, Isaac is still cutting. Isaac decides to crochet a humbag inspired by his grandmother. He wants to incorporate a lace wrapper inspired by a design his own grandmother came up with. But time management gets to Isaac again. He doesn't get to install the zipper, he doesn't get to finish the wrapper, and ultimately his unfinished bag is the main reason he gets sent home. This isn't new. Isaac has struggled with time management all the way back since episode 1 with the Rainbow and Tarja couch debacle, and of course, the edit leans into it because it's leading up to his elimination. Holger and Lydia are painted as the top 2 in the bag challenge. Ailsa is presented as having lost her spark, and Isaac's bag is unfinished. Ultimately, Isaac is sent home, and he actually looks pretty relieved, which tells you a lot about how grueling this whole process has been, but of course, we can't take this fully as fact, because our perception of Isaac as relieved has been shaped by the edit. The show wants us to think he's okay with going home this week. Here's my big question going into the finale. What responsibility does a reality show have to the people that it profits off of? Channel 4 and the production company Hello Halo have massive budgets. They have legal teams behind them. They have decades of experience producing just this kind of work. They have full knowledge of how the internet behaves and how it responds to the television content that they produce. The contestants are regular people. Many of them don't have lawyers, they definitely don't have media training, and they have zero control over how they're presented in the edit. The contestants don't even get to see the episodes before they air. They watch them air live, just as the rest of us do, except they can feel their stomachs sink as they think, ooh, the internet is not gonna like that clip. If the show has decided that you're the villain, or you're rough around the edges, or you're checked out, or you're a perfectionist, there's nothing you can say about it. You are gagged by your contract. Meanwhile, the people behind these edits, the ones who chose the dramatic background music or picked which facial expression to cut to, they don't have to face any consequences. They remain faceless. Their comment section isn't flooded. They don't have to send their sister into a Facebook group to defend them. As a teacher, I am legally responsible for my students' physical safety while in my classroom. But I always felt a responsibility for their emotional safety as well, because there's a power imbalance there. And I think there's a similar one with the production company too. They don't have to make everyone look perfect or protect the contestants from all criticism, but with their backing and their years of experience, the production company should realize that their editing choices have real consequences and they need to have safeguards to protect the contestants when online discourse turns ugly. We've seen comments that are racist, cruel, and dehumanizing, and the production company has been absolutely silent. And then there's a compensation piece, because if the production company is using these contestants' designs to sell kits, they should be compensating the designers accordingly. If the contestants didn't know those kits were coming and they weren't being compensated, it's not just how reality TV works. It's an intentional choice by the production team. It's a choice that benefits the institution and exploits the individual. The question isn't, why are knitters mad about this television show? The question is, what is this production team building, and who are they willing to harm to continue making a profit and getting their views? As we head into the finale, we have 3 contestants left, but there can only be one winner. And production has pushed certain tropes hard. We have the frontrunner, the perfectionist, and the difficult one. So now we get to see which story they want us to walk away with. I'll be live streaming the finale right here if you want to join, and that link will be in the description box for you. I can't believe the show is almost over. I've really genuinely enjoyed talking about it every week with you all, reading your comments and seeing the same names pop up again and again. Believe it or not, about 80% of my regular viewers are not subscribed to my channel. And so if you enjoy my style of knitting commentary and you want to keep watching even after Game of Wool is over, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and there's even a little bell button you can click so that you get a notification as soon as I post a new video, and you can be one of the first to watch. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about episode 7, and I can't wait to see how this all turns out at the end of the finale. As always, it's been really fun to talk about knitting with you today, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye!